I don't work a 9-to-5 job, so my ability to be moral in a whole bunch of decisions I make is very different from someone who would work, say, 9-to-5, has 2 kids. You know, I can sit there and take a moral high ground and say, I don't drive my car, or, you know, or I do this or I do that. But, or, you know, I'll go shopping there even though it takes me an extra hour.
It's hard to take the kids to school on the bus.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, I mean, I try and shop at a food co-op, right? But again, I have the time to sort of get there and sort of spend time filling up the jars.
Don't you think, though, that, you know, you taking the time to drive to a food co-op, that you would have a better impact if you actually openly campaigned about the Coles and Woolworths duopoly in Australia? So wouldn't it be better to channel your efforts to have a higher impact than to do all these tiny, almost tokenistic things that in the overall scheme of things won't change anything?
I think it has to be a combination of both. I think you've got to sort of, and sometimes you've got to live your ethics, you know?
That's
like,
right,
you've got to live
right.
it. My students would pick me up on that straight away and say to me, you know, like, and they say to me, where do you invest your money if you're talking about being ethical? Where do you invest your money? And I tell them I invest it with an ethical fund.
Robina, what do you think about this? Is this
Well, what I'm noticing is the world is unbelievably complicated. It just seems you've got to just do the best you can, making your personal choices, putting your money where your mouth is, doing, you know, being an advocate, but don't hold your breath for many changes sometimes. I mean, you can't be fundamentalist about it. You've got to be practical, you know, pragmatic. I really agree.
But aren't you a Buddhist monk who also has investments in the share market to try and maximise the dollars you've got
absolutely.
to put to your,
I think commerce is fantastic. I love commerce. Because it's coming from motivation, has to be. I mean, just recently
some people say that's hypocritical to even have a commercial focus, that you shouldn't be punting on the share market?
What's wrong with commerce? It's not innately bad, is it?
Well, it's motivated by self-interest and greed. Some people...
It doesn't have to follow that the work that I do, if it's commercial, is motivated by greed.
And you make sure all your investments are ridgy-dig and not doing things which might be hurting people?
Of course, absolutely. No way I would invest in, say, something like alcohol or guns, but, I mean, a friend of mine has some gold mines in Western Australia and diamonds somewhere else, and I offered him £20,000 when someone gave it to me, and he made me a 30% profit on that. Fantastic. I found a new role in life. I love it to death. I read my Business Week and my Wall Street Journal, and I'm learning enormously. And I really mean it. But how can money be bad if it can help people? In its nature, it can't possibly not... In its nature, it cannot be bad. It's up to your motivation.
It's all about what you do with it.
What you do with it. Your reason behind,
but
you know?
But it's so often, isn't it? I mean, that's the great drama of life, that it can corrupt people. I'm not saying it
totally
will.
can,
so
because we are corruptible by working on your mind.
Against that? Because obviously you're good at it. I can tell you're a good entrepreneur.
I understand. That's the thing. There's this nice analogy in Buddhism that a bird needs 2 wings, wisdom and compassion. So I always say the compassion wing is the political wing, is the action wing. And I've always been an activist. When I was an old communist and a radical lefty and a feminist, I was always on the action side. And it's not different now. But the wisdom wing, which is, and it happens to be that I'm using Buddhism for that, is where you put yourself together and you get your integrity and your morals and your authenticity, and you're absolutely ruthless with yourself, not lying to yourself, not being a hypocrite. Then you can be stable. And I know that if I were doing this 30, 40 years ago, I would have been corruptible. But now I'm not corruptible. It's a joke. I'm going to be dead soon. I'm 65 nearly. Money is useless to me. It's a joke. But I love to use it, and I'm comfortable with that because I know it's not for me, you know.
Vincent de Paul said, and I love this quote, money is love.
There you go. That's the one.
It took me 65 years to find that.
Well done. Good on you.
Because the one from the Gospels about the love of money is the root of all evil, that was all right, but that gets a bit well-worn and torn over.
For a wealthy
but I'm glad to see this bloke, Vincent de Paul, who worked with the poorest of the poor.
Yes.
Money is love. And then I thought...
So when you really know that your own actions bring consequences to yourself, who would want to lie? Who would want to steal? Who would want to cheat? It's not possible. If you have any introspection at all, you would know it would harm you. And I just think we tend to think of morality only as of something that you get caught at. That, I think, is really childish level of morality. When you know that whatever you do impacts upon yourself, then you're completely uncorruptible.